The New York Times, one of the largest newspapers in the world. Hundreds of photographers, writers, and editors come together every day to create the next issue. But none of this would be possible without the unseen assistance of photo editors. Among them, none is more prominent than Maura Foley, a rapidly rising employee of the New York Times. This is the story of her rise to power. The New York Times prints thousands of copies every day, each containing dozens of photos. How does Maura Foley influence this process?
I'm picture editor on the weekend editions of the New York Times. I do page one. So the Sunday and Monday papers that you get, page one is what I produce.
A position of power within such a prestigious newspaper is not easily obtained. How did Maura Foley start out in the world of photography?
I found it incredibly inspiring to see historical photos. I felt like it just brought me into a situation much more than even just reading about something. And as I got more and more aware of the history of photography, I wanted to do and find out more about it, and I wanted to suddenly produce pictures of that I had made, pictures that I was creating, either telling a story or I don't know, even creating art. So it evolved. My interest in photography evolved from my interest in history to my interest in telling stories. And to me, knowing how to be able to write also is very important, even for the still image, because it helps you to understand how to write a story.
But this was only the beginning of Maura Foley's rise to photographic power. Her true calling still awaited her.
I became a photo editor, really just helping photographers that were friends of mine, maintaining their archives, and I was doing it while I was looking for a real job. And I was taking tests, I was taking graduate school tests and LSATs, and I worked at this photo agency. And slowly but surely I realized I was actually a good photo editor. And a good photo editor for an agency very often means listening to people. So I would get a phone call from a client. They might say, "We're looking for a picture that shows achievement." And I'd go through all of our pictures of sports action pictures that could show achievement. Maybe they'd have to be model release depending on what they were doing. Maybe it was for a magazine and they just wanted, achievement in track and field or pressure, or it could be something that was very abstract. And what I realized is I liked going through and editing people's work, photographers' work, to see what pictures could work with a concept. So I just grew into it. And it was something that I knew that I loved doing. I liked working with the photographers, telling them what they need to shoot, and I liked working with the magazine editors. So it became a natural, very organic process.
As Maura Foley's talent grew, so did her reputation. She became acquainted with several professional photographers and soon received an offer she could not refuse.
I happened to know Michelle McNally because she was the director of photography at Fortune magazine, which is another Time Inc. publication. And she called me one day actually looking to see if I could recommend anyone, and I said, "How about me?" Because I've always loved the Time, and in fact the Times, and it's always been a goal of mine actually to come here. So it was incredibly exciting. And in the past, most people that had come to work on the newspaper had only come from other newspapers. To come from magazines to go into the newspaper was very kind of different, a very different bridge to come in. But even then, she brought me in really to almost, I would say that I didn't interview for the job. I sort of went on trial run. You know, I came in and worked freelance, and it worked out really well, and then I got hired as full-time staff.
With all her talent, it was no surprise when Maura Foley began to rapidly rise within the ranks of the newspaper.
I came to the New York Times in 2004 and started working in the Metro section, working on the local news, which I absolutely loved working on, getting to know the city that I grew up in and thought that I knew so well because I've been a reader of the New York Times since I was in certainly high school. So it's led me here, and I worked in different sections now at the paper in the past 9 years that I've been here, but now I do the page one weekend.
After so many years of photographic power, Maura Foley has only this to say.
I look at a lot of pain and suffering. I look at a lot of tragedies. I look at a lot of very lovely and happy things too. And you just try to balance them out, I guess. So sometimes I do need to maybe talk about them, but generally you just try to not let it affect you and treat them as responsibly, fair. If I can treat a story being fair, responsible, unbiased, and respectful, then I'm happy with this, how I've taken care. I take care of those pictures with responsibility. So I can be comfortable with the story, no matter how tragic it is, if I feel like we've done a very good job with the pictures, something that I can feel proud of.